in family life means that there are often crisis sort of moments that occur and will continue to occur probably, certainly for a few years to come, around his health and seizures in particular. So the nervous system work to use in the moment and frequently is really, really powerful. And again, that's something that you can use anywhere, and it's just so potent to be able to feel the edge and to understand why you're feeling a certain way in a particular moment, and to then catch yourself and to be able to change the direction of your emotions, of your responses, of your reactions in that particular point in time. And I think to have that toolkit as a woman, as a mother, as a human, is so important.
This podcast is called Reconditioned because this is the place where you'll learn how to truly recondition your entire life. Where other wellness podcasts or platforms focus on one particular area of wellness or inner growth, Reconditioned is a one-stop shop for all of it, so that you can get all the information you need to heal and up-level the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of your life in one place. Because that's what I needed when I was healing from the arthritis I had from the age of 2 that left me disabled by 18. I got myself to a place of complete wellness after a very long journey of immersion into the world of healing, where I learned how to heal the whole self. My purpose now is about bringing that to you, and my Rise membership is an extension of that. For women who want to take their wellness and growth to the next level, there really is nothing out there like it. You'll be part of a global community of like-minded women with access to 14 modules that literally take you through everything you ever need to learn in order to bring your life to a place of balance and abundance. With group coaching calls with me, personalized support, community book club, and so much more. Rise becomes part of your life, your lifestyle, enabling you to thrive in the ways you always dreamed, with me right there beside you, championing you through your journey. It's not always open for enrollment, so if you're hearing this now, it's open and ready for you to enroll. Just go to the show notes for the link or visit laurenvakneen.co.uk/rise. Welcome back to Reconditioned. I am Lauren Vakneen, and I'm so happy to have you back with a brand new little initiative we're doing here on Reconditioned. So I decided to start interviewing some of my Rise members from my Rise community because there is so much to take away from what we gain from being on this journey. I put Rise together. It started as the Recondition Your Life Academy. It's since evolved into a membership program with all the content, as well as other features. And I did it because when I was on my healing journey, there was nothing that was all in one place. And I put everything in one place for women to be able to access their entire holistic healing and living journey in one place. And so you can imagine that we get women from all walks of life, all coming to the work for completely different varying reasons. Many join because they are in a crisis state. They've just been diagnosed with something, or they have a sick child, or, they've left the abusive marriage, or there's been a big trauma. But just as many women join just to do the inner work that we all know is necessary, that too many people leave until the crisis happens, but that we actually should be doing before that, and to learn how to craft their holistic lifestyle. So I thought I would start interviewing some of the women on the community and hear about how the work has impacted them and what tools they've been able to use to make genuine, tangible, actual, actionable, huge changes in their lives. And some of our women have made massive shifts. Great, huge things have happened. So, everything from starting to really learn how to put your life into alignment and start manifesting better, and, getting the job that you want, and, landing the gig that you want, and having your career start to soar, to healing the dis-ease, to learning how to raise your family with a completely holistic lifestyle, to just learning how to have and go through life with a regulated nervous system and a more efficient cognitive function, brain function, everything, the whole gamut of holistic healing and living is within that. So I thought it would be really nice to speak to some of the women on the community. And I know you might be listening to this thinking, yeah, but I tune in to hear you talk about specific topics or to hear from experts. I still want you to listen to this, because one of the things that is amazing on the Rise membership is our monthly coaching calls. And we focus on a topic every month that I will lead everyone through. But before that, we choose someone to, members apply for the Golden Circle, which is the hot seat. And they get to ask a question and have all the focus on them and have me kind of coach them through whatever the problem is. And it could be absolutely anything. And everyone learns so much from hearing the answers and the questions from the person who has taken the hot seat. So this is you being able to hear how you can implement certain things in your life to improve and enrich your life in ways that maybe you didn't realize you needed until you start doing this work. And that's the irony of this work. So many of my members say, and this is what Jessica in this episode speaks about, that it's the work you don't know you need until you're in it. Well, that's ironic. So how'd you get to it? Well, you get to it by listening to things like this and starting to listen to your inner compass telling you that you've come to this podcast and this sort of work for a reason. And maybe it's time to start delving deeper. And there are, people out there like me ready to support you on the journey. So this episode was so lovely. It was so nice to just catch up with a member and hear how the work has impacted her over the last couple of years that she's been a member. And so I'm looking forward to you hearing it and would love to hear your comments and hear all your thoughts as usual. Engage with me over on Instagram about this. And as usual, if you enjoy any of these episodes, please do share them with your friends. Give me a rating and a review on Spotify or on Apple, because it helps more people to find the podcast. So thank you. As usual, I appreciate you. So welcome back to Rise, everyone, on the Reconditioned podcast. The Rise episodes are episodes that I do on my own for some extra life coaching advice. And today we are starting a new little initiative here called Real Time Rise, where I'm going to be interviewing people, women on my Rise community who would like to speak about their experiences within the community and how the work has impacted them, because I think it's quite easy to kind of get lost in thinking about things you want to do to improve your life and not really know where to start or what's the next thing that can help. So I think hearing this from the horse's mouth, so to speak, from women who have been through the program, are still part of the program and have had the work impact their lives is really helpful for people to hear. So today we have lovely Jessica from Hertfordshire, who's been an incredible member of the community. And welcome, Jessica.
Thanks, Lauren. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, and I know you're a long-term listener of the podcast as well. So
I am. It's been one of my favourites since you began. So yeah, no, it's brilliant.
Amazing. Well, I'm so happy to have you here. Obviously, I am going to treat you like any other guest and ask, what have you done so far today to support your wellness?
Okay, so far this morning, it's sort of low key. I took the long way home on the school run, which I do quite often actually, because it's just really scenic. And I sort of mosey my way through the countryside. So that's quite a nice little routine. And I slowed down with a really nice cup of herbal tea. Again, really simple, but quite an important sort of daily routine in the morning. That was before the school run. And that's all I've done so far, but I've got plans for later.
I love that. So let's just jump straight in. I had another question to start with, but based on what you've just said, did you have those simple practices to enrich your life before Rise?
I think sometimes I find sometimes I get sucked into what you feel you should do. And I know it sounds really silly, but after having children, and a lot of friends would talk about their coffee addiction and, I need to get my coffee in before I feel that I can face the day. And I never drank coffee before I had children. And I found myself drinking so much more and actually feeling quite sort of spun out on it in the morning. So sometimes, not always, but increasingly, I will find that I sort of block myself from reaching for the habits, if you like, and pausing and thinking, no, actually, what would be better here? And actually, this morning it was a herbal tea instead of a coffee. And driving the long way around is something that I've definitely just appreciating the smaller things. I think that is definitely a change that I felt since doing this work. So yeah.
Amazing. So for those who are kind of tuning in and you don't know much about Rise, Rise is my membership program for women that incorporates every aspect of the healing of the whole self. And I put it together because when I was on my healing journey, the reason it took me over a decade was because everything was in different places. And so I created Rise to put everything in one place. So that's just kind of me prefacing what we're talking about here. If you aren't aware of Rise yet, you can go to my website and go to laurenvacney.co.uk/Rise, and you'll see all about the community and our membership program. So my first question for you is, what made you want to join Rise in the first place?
So, as you said, I've been a long-time listener of the podcast, and I found, particularly during lockdown, I just loved the sort of the routine and the habit of going for a walk in the woods, and listening to you and all the interviews that you had going on there, and all the people that you were talking to in so much detail. And it became the podcast and that part of my daily routine became a really important part of my time. And I loved the detail of what I was hearing, and I found it really inspiring and motivating to go and find out more about certain aspects of what you were talking about. And some of that within a particular context of what I needed help with at the time. But I also loved the learning side of it and the sense that there was this real community out there that I was sort of getting a bit of a glimpse in on, where the paradigm was completely different. And there was so much expansion, I suppose, in terms of what we as individuals, but as a collective, could learn about and could share and could support one another in developing. And funnily enough, there were episodes originally that I would skip over because it felt like too much. Like I couldn't, there were some things that were just sort of way above and beyond my knowledge and scope at that point in time. And I've since gone back to those. So that was originally sort of my interest and sense of connection with the work and what you were talking about. And then from that, there was a particular, it must have been an episode, or maybe it was you sharing on Instagram that you were opening it in the days of it being Recondition Your Life Academy. And it only opened for enrollment at certain points in time. And it must be one of those things where when the time is right, it kind of comes to you, because there must have been 2, maybe 3 enrollments that you had before. And it sort of just, glossed over me. I wasn't particularly tuned into when you were opening those up. I don't even really remember. But then this particular window happened when you were opening enrollment, and it just connected, and I just thought, this is what I need. And then I contacted you and asked a little bit more about it, and it went from there really. And it was amazing. And actually, funnily enough, a friend of mine then joined at the same time, and she said, "Oh my goodness, this is exactly what I've been looking for. Thank you so much." And I just happened to share it with her just because I felt like sharing, and I'm always a bit wary of oversharing in this modern age, but I'm so glad I did. And then she's brought other friends in as well. So yeah, I really think things like this come to you when you really need them and when you're open to them.
I know, interrupting an episode with an ad is so annoying, I know. But guys, I want to ask you not to fast forward this and listen for just 2 minutes, because there is a huge element of health optimization and reducing risk of illness that most people don't even realize. You need to be reducing artificial blue light in the home and get targeted red light on your body. The reason is because when the body registers blue light, your brain, based on evolution, assumes it's early daytime. But our brains in 2024 are registering blue light from our light bulbs and our screens at literally all hours, prompting our bodies to produce cortisol, the stress hormone, as well as other hormones we just shouldn't be producing at night. This affects our stress and anxiety levels, and it stops the cells in our bodies being able to repair and regenerate at night. And let me be clear, when our cellular health is compromised, we literally cannot stay healthy. And our amazing partner, Block Blue Light, have created some incredible light bulbs that allow you to switch between settings and have only amber light at night, which is what we kitted our whole house out with when we renovated a few years ago. And if you do need to work after dark, like I have to sometimes, Block Blue Light also have amazing blue light blocking red light glasses, some that fit over your usual glasses, and they can even custom make glasses with your prescription. They also have some of the most powerful and effective red light machines on the market. using photobiomodulation to help keep the mitochondria in your cells healthy, something we cannot be healthy without, as well as helping your body to produce more collagen for bones and joints and to keep skin looking great as you age. It also supports pain and recovery, and red light is said to reduce the risk of Alzheimer's because of how it impacts brain health. We can't control everything happening in this modern world that affects our health, but my personal motto is to mitigate where we can and put in place everything we can for the things we can control, and blue light is one of them. You can get a 10% discount across the range by visiting blockbluelight.co.uk and using the code LV10. Okay, back to the show. Yeah, I agree completely. It's that whole thing of when the student's ready, the teacher will appear or whatever. But it's such a thing. It's so true about the timing because, often people will say it's just not the right time. I have so much going on. But as you know, from within the community, there are very few women in this day and age that aren't busy, whether that, there are many women in the community without children, but a lot of us with children. And either way, we've all got stuff going on. And it's never, I would say it's never really the right time in terms of logistics. We're all very busy all the time, but there's just that innate kind of knowing of when it's the right time, when you're ready to start the work.
Definitely. And I think also it's sort of, as you say, those blockers that you can put on things. I think you can overthink stuff too. And if something sings out to you that, this feels really, really right for me right now, then the next question really is, how can I make it work? And that at that point in time, that was the question I asked myself. I thought, how can I make this investment and make sure that I use this investment and carve out the time and shift how I do things and how I look at things. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So what was it that was, and we're going to get personal now. What was it in your life that you felt you needed? Because I have a personal view that we all need this work consistently, constantly. I've been doing it for over 20 years and I'm still very much immersed, as you know, in the healing journey. So I think everyone needs it. But what was it that was going, because usually there's like a tipping point for all women where they're like, right, I need to do something now. And it's a shame because really we should come to this work before things get really bad, or before, a lot of women join because they've been diagnosed with something, or because, they've left the marriage, or when things have got really, really bad, which is a shame because really we should just come to it before that happens and be on the healing journey and be working towards kind of this place of equilibrium within us. But what was it in your life that was going on that you felt you were ready for that support?
So in terms of my personal life, the biggest challenge I faced in adulthood is when I became a parent and my eldest son was born with a brain injury at birth, and as a result and as a consequence of that has brain damage and multiple sort of disabilities. So that was why I came to the work. But I didn't come to the work because I had got to the point where I thought I actually really need this. Strangely, I think I came to it because I've always been into holistic and complementary therapies to a certain extent, but very much complementary to the mainstream approach to things. And what I was finding was that I was approaching practitioners or therapists looking and exploring things for my son. And I've always been really proactive in doing that. And a lot of what your mum talked about in the recent podcast really resonated. I'm just lucky because I've had the internet, so it's been a bit easier. But I was approaching therapists and practitioners. And I think the one before I joined Rise, or Ryla as it was around tapping. And I began to find that they were saying to me, yes, we can work with your son or with you and your son, but actually I think you need to do some of this work as well. And I listened because all of these people really were people that I really trusted, and there was such a grounded sense and sort of calm and perspective about them that really resonated and felt so different from when you have experiences with, say, a regular GP appointment that's 5 minutes and there's no real connection as such. That I sort of took that wisdom and I thought, well, there's got to be something in this. This isn't once that this has happened. This is several times. And it then occurred to me that I really had a choice. I either had to listen to this and engage in some of this a bit more myself, for myself, not for him, or potentially I would get to the point where actually I was also then broken as well. And that really was the tipping point, because I just thought, that isn't the point that I want to get to. And, you know, some people obviously end up in that situation, and everybody's situation and journey is different. But I was really determined that that wasn't what I wanted, and I couldn't afford for that to happen, because I'm there for him. And also that this was being said for a reason. And I would do well to listen really to people that were saying that. So that's really how I came to it. And I think as a result of that, what I found was it so expanded my perspective that it became a real treat and a real joy for me to have that time, that connection, that input, that I was learning for myself. I wasn't learning just for him anymore. So it was no longer an extension of the caring role that I had. It was an extension of myself, and it was a growth opportunity for me. And it flipped that relationship, because then everything that I was learning and experiencing myself, I would then be able to put into practice for him. And that's what's happened.
Mm. It's amazing how motherhood often leads us to that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Motherhood's such a great teacher in that way, because it leads us to make those shifts. And like you say, you weren't necessarily doing it for your son, you were doing it for you. And so many of our members say, this is my time. It's time for
Mm.
me now, and I need to do something for me that's not for my children, my husband, my boss, my, whatever it might be. Um, and I love that. I love that this becomes a space for that me time for women, for whatever reason they might come to the work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I often find with the modules and the videos, and I'm now back on my second sort of round with most of them, is that I'll listen when I'm driving in the car,
Mm.
which obviously means you can't sort of do some of the activities that are part of that. And then that's my time, because it's a time when I can also really think. So if I'm on a long journey, I'll often play a video, because I think, yeah, this is an hour to really sort of delve into this and to think, and then maybe I'll pause it and think as I'm driving along. And it turns, for example, something like driving, which is a really mundane activity, into something that feels like it's, an hour of time that you've got. It's not. It's an hour of time of driving to wherever to do whatever, and all of a sudden it's really special time, and I look forward to it.
Mm.
So yeah, it's just sort of one example of how I end up working it in, and carving out those little pockets of time for myself.
Mm. And one thing we always say, and something I always advise to members, is you have to schedule it in,
Mm.
because it can be something that falls, to the back burner. And I always say, kind of schedule in some time a week where you're doing it. But then on top of that, you've got the car journeys, or, a trip, if you're on a train or something, you could play one of the meditations or whatever it might be. And having it now on the app makes it so much more accessible to do that. I want to ask about, so let's kind of go into do you know what? Let me ask this first. Before you joined, because it took you, like you said, it took a while until you decided, was it just a timing thing, or were there things holding you back, like life things, or any kind of concerns, or anything holding you back?
There wasn't. I mean, there was the cost, the financial investment of it, I suppose. You need to be at a point where you think, I really want to make this investment, and I got to that point fairly quickly. But it wasn't so much that there was any major barrier. I think it was that I didn't think I needed it, which
Mhm.
seems a bit odd, really. Um, yeah, my personality, the sort of person I am, the fact that are always still dealing with sort of mini crises with our son, and the fact that I'm always seeing that role as being first and foremost in my head, combined with naturally how I am and how I problem solve and just get on with things, and that's the sort of person that I am, meant that I wouldn't have thought I needed it. There wasn't anything calling out to me that made me think I need to work on inner child, for example.
Okay.
And it's only when you begin it that stuff starts to appear, and you think, actually, this is really powerful stuff. Like I'm thinking about myself, the world around me, everything in a really different way. And from that, the connections and the sort of links between aspects of life, between relationships that you have, between your work persona and your other persona, all of that has shifted for me. And I think, yes, I didn't get to the point where I was in complete crisis before I did it, but I do fundamentally believe that if I hadn't done this or something like it, I probably would have got to that point.
Mm.
Um, and I'm obviously hugely proud of the fact that I made that decision, and really thrilled to be part of that community of people that are working on that sort of sense of enlightenment and surrender and growth, really.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, slightly rambling answer. I can't remember the original question,
No,
Lauren.
it's really nice, because I think something that so many of the women say is the irony of the whole thing is you don't know how much you need it until you start doing it. I've had so many testimonials come through from women going like, this is the work you don't need, you don't know you need until you do it. And that makes it challenging to explain to people what, because there are many things out there that will go, do this and you'll lose all your belly fat in 12 weeks,
Mhm.
or, do this and you'll learn how to earn $100,000 in 3 months. And this isn't that. And I don't think there is no silver bullet for healing or for growth. But in anyone's life, if things aren't completely in alignment, and let's be honest, how many of us have our lives completely in alignment, there is work to be done. And it's very hard to understand that or tune into that when you're not in the world of doing that until you are in the world of doing it, which
Mhm.
is why it's challenging to explain to people why it's so impactful, not just because you've been diagnosed with a dis-ease, or not just because you have a sick child, or not just because your marriage is crumbling or you've come out of a traumatic situation, but because we're all carrying stuff inside that needs to be healed so that it doesn't manifest into something else, as well as the shadow stuff, right? I find so many of the women come to me and say the shadow module was so life transforming because they didn't realize how much they actually weren't acting authentically, operating authentically in their lives at all. So I find that, I'm really happy you said that, because it does. I hear that from so many of the women that they joined because something bad had happened that they wanted to heal, and actually then they realized that they needed it all along. So often it is these, life-changing things that lead us to the work, and that's why those things that happen are a blessing. Um, what's been your experience with the modules? Like, which ones have really impacted you?
I was just thinking, actually, as you were talking, and this sort of speaks to all of the modules. I think the thing that I've taken away more than anything from all of the modules, collectively and individually, is around mindset and shifting your mindset, and also around the sense that you can't control things around you, but you can always control your reaction to them.
Mm.
And that, I think, for our, my particular circumstances, of in our family, that was groundbreaking for me. That sense that there has to be an element of surrender in order to stand back and take control of yourself in whatever eventuality it might be. And we all have experiences where, throughout life, where that would apply, and that would be really helpful. So that's definitely something that has come through for me, and that I go back to really often, is around that mindset sort of distinction. And actually, last summer, my husband and I had a bit of a joke, because I announced at the beginning of the summer that I was going to have a mindset that summer, or an intention that summer, of joy and gratitude. And it was sort of a little bit tongue in cheek to him, because I was talking to him, and it's not the same as talking to members of the Rise community. But in my heart, that's what I wanted to do. But it became a bit of a joke, because if anything sort of negative happened, I would sort of repeat my mantra of joy and gratitude, partly as the sort of, a bit of a joke between the two of us. But then I would go and do the work from the various modules. And I think by that point I was halfway through, around actually, how do I shift my headspace here to one of joy and gratitude? How can I reinforce that sort of intention and manifest the joy and the gratitude in things that aren't perfect, and situations, and so that was really powerful for me. I think also within the different modules, and the one that's been the biggest blocker for me, actually, I need to go back to repeatedly, I think, is divine feminine. That's the
Mm.
one. That's the one that I had the most fear of going into, and I think there are reasons for that. But it's the one that because I've had the most fear around, and because I've sort of had the biggest block, I know that I need the most.
Mm.
There are others that I have felt I've sort of breezed through a bit more easily, but then that doesn't necessarily mean there aren't sort of other layers within it. But honestly, I couldn't choose. I don't think I could choose one that has had, the biggest impact. I really have found that every single one of them, I've gone in perhaps with a preconceived idea of what I think I might need from that, it
Mm.
never turns out to be what I think it should be or would be or is, or it's always different. And every time you go back to them, I find I take something different away from it. And that's part of the joy of the work as well, is that there's so many layers to it, and what you come in with and how you spend time on it, makes a huge difference in terms of the outcome of what you take away from it too. It's such rich work. There's so much within it. It's just incredible.
Mm. Thank you. Yeah. I think that's a key thing that you've said as well. This isn't a course that you kind of go through and then you finish and then that's it. I always say it's not even a membership, it's a lifestyle. We've got members who have been with us for 4 years who are still going back on the modules because, like you say, things come up different. I've been did my first inner child journey at 18 years old. That was 22 years ago. And I still do inner child work and new stuff comes up. And that's not to say that we're always on this journey of trying to find trauma and trying to dig beneath the surface to find bad things, not at all, because actually, as you know from the work, it's very much about kind of removing it from the body, like acknowledging it and honoring it, and then removing it from the body and learning how to step into a place of high vibration and personal power where we can actually enjoy our lives, not be constantly, but it's the drawing out of it that brings us into the truth of who we are, into that space of authenticity. And I always find that people will say things like it was the modules that they really thought that they didn't even realize they needed, could never come into their sphere of consciousness, like ancestral healing, that have been really impactful. We've had quite a few members say that ancestral healing has been, one of the impactful modules that they've done, which is, the kind of module that, unless you've done that sort of work before, ancestral healing or shamanic work, it's just not in your sphere of consciousness, and therefore it's not something you realize you need. It's interesting what you say about divine feminine. I love that you said that, because actually what you've recognized in yourself is that the more of a block you have around something, the more you need to go back to it, but you're able to kind of go through the motions and do the other work, skip over it if you need to, because the other work you're doing is enabling you to recognize the blocks so that you can go back to it. What do you think is blocking you from divine feminine?
I've done the divine feminine, and I definitely got something out of it the first time. What I will get out of it the second, third, fourth, fifth time, I wait to see, because I know there will be lots. I think I probably would have needed it anyway. So I'm not laying the blame at the feet of my son, but the birth trauma around his arrival is definitely a part of it.
Mm.
And I think, I don't know, maybe it's not exclusively a motherhood thing, but there is such a disconnect, I think, as well, between, our maternity system and this way of looking at things and of viewing things. And I do think that, certainly if I was to have another child, I would do it very differently, and I would take much more control over what I wanted to do and what I wanted for my body and for my child. But this was 13 years ago my son was born, so it was very different. And I think that is a key part of the block for me around divine feminine. But I'll let you know when I go back and do it.
Yeah,
More
that would be
times.
interesting to know. Yeah. It sounds to me from what you were saying about the mindset shifts that the brain training module was probably quite impactful as well. I know that a lot of people take away from it because, listen, when you talk about this work, it can sound very, almost like, well, how do you actually bring all of it together? And I don't really get how it works. But what I find most people say in terms of the benefits of the membership is that you get actual tangible tools, like you learn how to shift your mindset, you learn how to move into a state of gratitude. Have you found that?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have. I think the brain training is an interesting one for me because, again, I had learned a lot about neuroplasticity. When you have a child with a brain injury, that, in fact, 13 years ago, neuroplasticity wasn't a term that was used. You were totally woo-woo if you thought that was a thing. I did think it was a thing. I spent a lot of time researching it. But again, it wasn't something I thought I needed because, my brain was functioning fine, thanks very much. So I think it was a really interesting way of shifting my perspective around just how powerful these tools are and how everybody can benefit from them. The brain training aspect of that, but also around the nervous system work. Our situation, really, it's ultimately we're responsible for ourselves. And I feel that along with my homeopathy kit, I've got all of these tools at my disposal, and I'm just so grateful that I've got all of that. I find myself drawing on so much of it so often. And that's the day-to-day simple stuff. That's not the sort of deep thinking and reflection work. That's responding to a particular situation. What have I got? What can I use? And it's really empowering to have that. Is hugely empowering.
I think that was when we upgraded from the when it was an online course to it being a membership. One of the reasons we invested so much in the app and the upgrade and, did everything we did was because we wanted it to feel like a place where women could be, that it wasn't just about the modules. It wasn't just about kind of the, if you like, coursework, which is there and it's kind of just available and you can access it as and when you need it. And we recommend, doing a bit every week, but someone like you who's done the modules and to go back kind of as and when you need it. But it was more to have that support in your holistic living journey. So not even necessarily if you're healing from something. I mean, that obviously is a big part of it for a lot of people, but we have women who join now just because they want to craft a more holistic lifestyle for their families, and having kind of a hub for that is super helpful. And I think for me, that was one of the most important things, one of the most important reasons to create this, because, the questions I was getting all the time was, but how do I implement this? And what about this tool? And what about this technique and this method? And now that it runs as kind of a membership model, I'm able to provide that support through the monthly coaching calls and the Voxer days. And so let's talk about that actually. How do you find all kind of the extra little bits? Because it's not just about the coursework, is it?
No, the Voxer days were an absolute favourite. I don't think there's anyone in the community that doesn't A, turn up for them, and B, love them. They're brilliant.
Do you want to explain what they are for people who
have
no idea what Voxer Day is? So I probably should have prefaced that.
The Voxer days are a day when Lauren's available once a month, is it, Lauren?
Yep.
And you can send a voice note to Lauren or to you, Lauren, and you can ask a particular question, pose a problem or an issue that you want support on, and you come back with a pretty lengthy personalised message. I don't know how you get through them all in a day. And it feels like a conversation via voice note, really. And to have that one-to-one bespoke support and guidance is really amazing. And I've asked you some pretty random stuff, from Divine Feminine through to creativity around sort of work and having creative blocks with work that I had to do, and how to embody the creative a bit more. So yeah, your days must be pretty bizarre when you get all these different messages in one go.
You know what, Voxer Day, I love Voxer Day so much. At the beginning of the day, I'm a bit like, okay, here we go. But at the end of the day, I'm like, that was amazing, because like you say, so many different topics come through. Someone might be saying, how can I tune in more deeply with my intuition? And someone else might say, my kid's got chicken pox, what can I do? And someone else might say, Divine Feminine. Or someone else might say, oh, it could be, it's everything. It's the entire gamut of holistic healing and living. And they vary so much. But the interesting thing energetically about Voxer Days is that at the end of the day, there always seems to be a theme that runs throughout the community, where there are messages that I respond, and I could send them to 10 or 20 of the members. It really, really interesting. There's always kind of like a running theme. And I think that must be like an energetic connection between all the members that no one even realizes they have, because we've got members all over the world now. And I find that so interesting. But Voxer Day is so, so powerful, because I think at the end of it, everyone's feeling, just kind of this sense of everyone feels a bit uplifted and a bit connected with each other. And obviously, like you said, to have that personalized support. I can't do, hour-long one-to-one sessions with everyone, but we can offer that. And it's been, probably one of the favorite features of the membership. So I'm glad you're enjoying it.
No, they're brilliant. And actually, I was just thinking, because the coaching calls obviously also happen once a month, and they're great. And I try and make those live. I can't always, but the recordings are always there. And they're sort of now listed with the topics and everything there,
Yeah.
aren't they? Which is really helpful. Again, some of them I go back to. In fact, the recent one with Denise, I've forgotten her last name, around essential oils.
Yeah.
I couldn't make it live, and I listened to it thinking, oh, this is going to be all about essential oils. I'm looking forward to this. I want to get back into my essential oils. And actually the first half of it was all about completely other stuff that was so deep and expansive. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. And then I had to pause it, go and have a cup of tea, and then get onto the oil section. So no, it's always, just such rich conversations. It's amazing. Really lovely. And because I'm a bit nosy, I'd really like to hear other people's voxes, not to hear about their lives per se, but to hear that conversation and how you respond, and to learn from other people's scenarios of what it is and what you suggest.
Well, maybe this month we can do a little initiative where we can do a thread on the app where everyone can kind of post what their question is about and the sort of answer they were given. Whoever wants to can do that. That's a really nice idea, actually. It's funny with what you say about the calls, because we do have a topic, but we always start, by asking everyone how they are, and then someone has the golden circle, which is, someone can people apply to get the hot seat, so to speak, and then they get to ask, for me to spend some time guiding them, and everyone else always seems to benefit. Of course, we learn from other people's life situations as well. So last night, on last night's call, which was the monthly coaching call, we had one of our members have the hot seat, and the question was about menopause, kind of cognitive function, and things kind of feeling like they're slipping, brain fog, all that sort of stuff. So it was very health optimization focused, but it could be anything. So that was good. And then we went on to the topic of surrender and energy, and making it how to make it not matter, which was amazing. And last night's call was absolutely epic, actually. But the great thing about the group calls is you'll get to kind of connect with each other and see who you resonate with, and then chat on the app. Do you personally have much going on the app? Do you connect with people?
I do. I go through waves, and it was really, really nice to connect face to face with people after the summer solstice workshop session. And again, I'm really looking forward to the November day as well, which again will be a chance to connect with some people. Obviously, we can't meet everybody face to face, and there's members across the world, but that reinforces those connections. So yes, I haven't got an accountability partner for various different reasons, but I might ask to set one of those up.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a choice for anyone listening. We have the option, if you like an accountability partner, we set you up with a partner, and that always works, because then you're kind of, you have to check in with them and see how they're doing, and they see how you're doing, and you have things that you want them to hold you accountable to, and even if it's really small steps, but the accountability partner thing helps. Do you make much use of the book club?
The book club, I'm sorry, I'm like the worst book club member, because I buy the books. I sometimes read the books. I really enjoy the books, and then I don't say anything about books.
Right. Yeah.
So I've got a few of them still to go, either that I need to buy and look forward to reading, or that I've bought and want to read. But what I also find I do, the book club helps me to do, is then the one about the emotion code. I then went and found some other sort of interviews with, I've completely forgotten the name. I need to do the brain
Dr.
cognition
Nelson.
module. Yes, thank you. Of him being interviewed, and finding out more about it that way. So it goes beyond sort of just, in inverted commas, being a book club as well.
Yeah.
So yes, I need to be a better book club member. Sorry.
Well, we changed the book club from every month to every other month, because I think it was quite intense to expect people to read a book every month. Not that we expect any, people can read the books or not read the books. They're just there for because I get asked so much, what my favorite books are when it comes to kind of self-growth and development and spirituality. So, but the good thing is that they're all there in the book club space on the app, I guess. So you can go back on them and choose, whichever one you want at any point. But yeah, I think having it every other month is a bit more manageable for people, because every month to get through a book is sometimes not possible for everyone.
I still go back to the first one though, by Clarissa Pinkola Estes.
Women Who Run with the Wolves. Yeah.
I mean, that one's amazing, and so structured in a way that you can take it into the bath with you and dip in and out, and it's beautiful.
Exactly. It's a book that you absolutely cannot read from cover to cover in a month or even in a year. Like you read, you dip in and out when you can, and you read bits and you read the different fables, and then you go back to it and you stop and you go back. And I'm always reading that book. I'll always read kind of one fable, every few nights or something, or every few weeks, depending on what mood I'm in, but always reading fiction in between, or even another nonfiction. But it's such a heavy book in a good way, but it is heavy. And it's often, with books like that, where it's literally talking to you about your soul and how to connect to yourself as a woman. It's deep work, and it opens up some things, and you start questioning. And anyway, that's a whole podcast episode on its own, on its own, talking about that book. I guess my final question to you, Jessica, is no, my penultimate question to you is, what in your life has actually changed, like tangible things that you've noticed have changed?
It's funny actually, because my husband said to me this summer, just gone, that he thinks that I have changed quite significantly in terms of how I react to things, and having a sense of calm about me, and a presence, I suppose, about me that perhaps I didn't have so much before. I think how others see you is so sort of, it's so helpful to see how others see you, and to reflect that back on yourself. Not that others' judgment of you matters so much necessarily, but it's helpful to have those other eyes on yourself. So I can't remember if I'd asked him or if he just volunteered the information, but when he said it, I was really proud of myself, because I just thought, actually, this, I know that this work is making a difference for me, but it's not just me and my thoughts and my thoughts around it and my reflections and my journal. It's actually having a tangible impact on how I am within the family, on my responses to crisis situations within our family life, and parenting, and it's having an impact in ways that I had hoped it would, but I have, I've been surprised by just how much of a difference it's made. I would say that within the work you talk about, is it the spiritual death or
The energetic death.
energetic death, and I have definitely noticed a couple of those moments where there is a sort of a paradigm shift around some relationships, and actually I have had moments where I've sort of reevaluated particular relationships or connections or friendships, and that isn't easy always. That can be really hard, but to sort of come out the other side of that, and to have a bit of a sort of regrading of certain relationships, is again really empowering. I happened to come to the work just before I turned 40. And that, I think, combined with, a milestone birthday, meant that I really felt the impact in certain ways. It was the right time for me. Excuse me. And yes, I'm really proud of the growth that I've gone through as a result of it all.
Oh, I love that. That's so lovely to hear. And I'm so glad to hear that your husband, is recognizing it as well. When you say it's not about other people's judgments, it's not, but our relationships offer us the most important mirror into ourselves and into our shadow. And often our partners will see things in us that we're not seeing, and they will raise that to us. They are a mirror for us. And it can be extremely triggering to be told things about yourself, or to be shown things about yourself that you don't want to see because you haven't recognized it yet. And so I think, relationship generally is an incredible mirror for that. And it does help us grow. So it's incredible that your husband has recognized that in you.
Yeah. I think it's also interesting. I've talked a bit about my son, and obviously there are reasons for that, but I've also got a daughter who's 7 currently, and I'm also so grateful that I've come to this work and been able to add that to my consciousness and to my toolkit in terms of the tools within it, before she gets to an age where things become more complicated. Because this world we live in is not an easy place to grow up in, and I really want to be forearmed in terms of helping her to navigate that world. And the best way that I believe I can do that is by making sure that I'm in the best position possible to guide and advise her and support her and love her.
Mm, I love that. Yeah, I always feel that about parenting as well. To have this work. When I had a daughter, when I had my daughter, I was so, and I already had a son, and there were many things, so many things within this work that are so impactful generally for parenting, boys or girls.
Mhm.
But having my daughter, I was so grateful to have so many of these tools in terms of the divine feminine stuff as well, and the sovereignty, and understanding the menstrual cycle from, a more kind of spiritual perspective, and a health optimization perspective, the hormones and all of those things. Having all of that at our disposal is essentially changing the world one person at a time, because if we're passing that to our children, they're going to grow up and they're going to operate in the world differently to how we did, and that's only a positive thing.
Absolutely.
So the last question is, if someone is listening, hearing you talk, but thinking, yeah, but I probably don't need it, or it's probably not the right time, or, any, or it's too expensive, or I don't have the time for it. What would your advice be to someone who is kind of considering it, but not 100% sure?
I think based on the experience and the journey that I've had with it, I think it would be wise to spend a bit more time thinking, well, why have I even come across it? Why, why am I here listening to this podcast? What is it that's made me follow Lauren and her work on Instagram, for example? What's brought this into my sphere of consciousness in the first place? Because I strongly believe that there's a reason for that, and you can dance around the edges of it for many months or for years, and not really make that much progress with those initial thoughts. But it's an investment of time. It's obviously a financial investment, but it's pretty minimal, really, considering the impact that it can have on your life. And I think there is so much that can be gained from being part of a community of like-minded women, and growing together. And you can do the work and be part of the community, but not engage loads in the chat if that's what you want to do. But to listen and to learn and to be sort of embedded within that community of learning as well is so powerful. And there's just so much that you take away from it. And initially, I probably went in and listened more. And then actually slowly but surely you come to the conclusion that you're quite wise, and actually you've learned quite a lot, and you also have things to share with other members that are asking questions. So yeah, it's been a joy from start to finish, and I'm not finished yet.
Yay. Jessica, thank you so much. I so appreciate you being here and sharing your story and sharing your journey, and how the work has impacted you, and it's amazing to hear where you're at now from when we first met. And well done to you for sticking with it, because at the end of the day, I can provide all the content and all the everything in the world, but it's each person's individual responsibility to find the time for it and to commit to making it a practice. So well done to you.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure and a joy to share.
You're so welcome. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Reconditioned. I am honestly so grateful to each and every person that tunes in. Thank you also for taking responsibility for your own well-being. You should know that just by choosing to listen to podcasts like this that further your well-being, you're moving more deeply into abundance consciousness. Now, don't forget, I have a bunch of free resources over at laurenvakneen.co.uk, as well as every recommendation you could ever need in regards to your well-being on the LV Recommends page, all categorized for your ease. Thank you also to our sponsors. These episodes would not be possible without them, so make sure to check them out and get some pretty awesome discounts on the show notes. And of course, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so that you can get updated each time a new one is released. Thank you. I appreciate you.